Today we're going to study the chronology of the book of Ezekiel. Chronology meaning we're going to study about the calendar system. And some of this may be repetition, and some of you might already know, but for most people this is something that's confusing. So hopefully through this study it will become a little bit more clear. Let us read Ezekiel chapter 33 verses 21 and 22 first. Ezekiel 33, 21 and 22. Now, in the 12th year of our exile, on the 15th of the 10th month, the refugees from Jerusalem came to me, saying, "The city has been taken. Now the hand of the Lord had been upon me in the evening before the refugees came, and he opened my mouth at the time they came to me in the morning. So my mouth was opened, and I was no longer speechless." Remember, Ezekiel was muted for a while, for a long time. And this speaks about the time, the 12th year of our exile. On the 5th of the 10th month, the refugees from Jerusalem came to me saying, "The city has been taken." This is one verse that has a crucial clue on calculating the years in the book of Ezekiel. But before that, let us think about the importance of why we have to study these years and numbers. First of all, in Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 7, which is the main passage for the History of Redemption series, it says, "Remember the days of old, consider the years of all generations." There's a reason why God is telling us, this is a command, commanding us to consider the years of all generations. And the condition in which God is speaking this passage, Deuteronomy 32 verse 7, is if you want to go into that land and receive God's blessings, then do this. So in order for us to enter into our promised land and receive God's blessings and live as God's people, we have to first remember the days of old. And secondly, we have to remember the years of all generations, not just the ones that I understand. That's one of the reasons why Ezekiel is really difficult for me. All these numbers and years and measurements, very difficult for me to really understand and make sense out of it. But, and so I have a tendency to put these to the side and not really try to understand. But recently I have come to realize how important these years are, not only within this history or my life, but in God's broader perspective of His will, His heavenly will. There's a reason why God has put us into history. And history is events of people that take place in certain years. And so this is like a guideline from the creation until the end time. We have beginning and the end. And there is a reason why God has put that beginning and promised the end. And in between the beginning and the end, God is trying to fulfill something. And I might share a little bit of that this coming Sunday. But there's a purpose that God wants to fulfill within this time. And understanding these years will help us to understand eventually what God is doing. And it allows us to see events of redemptive history in a certain perspective. So that is the introduction. God gave a new calendar before the Exodus. So when we talk about calendar, we have to start from when God gave that new calendar. Exodus 12, verse 2, "This month shall be the beginning of months for you. It is to be the first month of the year to you." And so when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, God says, this is reset the time. This is the first day of the first month for you. But they were following the Egyptian calendar when they were living in Egypt. And if we are able to calculate back according to the calendar that we are using. What's the modern calendar that we are using right now? What's it called? Gregorian calendar, right? Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not Julian calendar, right? It's Gregorian, right? We're using the Gregorian calendar, and we can calculate back to find out what year, what month, and what day it was back then during when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, the time of the Exodus, the day of the Exodus. However, God says, regardless of all these other calendars, I want you to start a new calendar. And this signifies a new beginning. And God is telling Israel during the Exodus, and spiritually when there comes a time when God is telling us, your new day is beginning from this point on. Just like Jesus began his ministry. And this is a time when God is saying, now you come and live in my timing. And so, living in God's timing means when God says to wake up, then we wake up. When God says to go, we go. When God says to God says, this is time to do my work. Just like Jesus said in John chapter 9, while I'm in this world, it is day. But when Jesus was in this world, there was night, day, evening, and so on, right? But Jesus says, when I'm in this world, it is day. Meaning, you follow my timeline, my timing, meaning, live in accordance to my word and follow my instructions. So, those who live according to the timing of God, according to God's calendar, are the ones that are considered God's people. I pray and bless in the name of the Lord that every one of us are already in God's calendar, in the timing of God. Amen? So when God says, I want you to do this, sometimes we say, no, God, wrong timing, because right now I don't have time. Right now it's not the right time for me. That means I'm still living in my time, my calendar. So let us think about the characteristics of the new calendar. First, according to the Western calendar, which is the Gregorian calendar that we are speaking about, this day was April 9th, the 9th of April in 1446 BC. But God declared that this day would be the first day of the month, the first day of the first month. So you can remember, it was April 9th, 9th of April, according to our calendar, if we check back. And secondly, the new calendar used a lunar calendar, which has 354 days in 1 year. So in order to synchronize with the solar calendar, the rotation of the earth and the revolution of the earth around the sun, if you only follow this timeline and this calendar, there will be some time left. And so in order to synchronize with the actual solar calendar, sometimes the 13th month, called the Adar the second, or Adar the second Adar, is inserted 7 times over a span of 19 years. So what's 19 divided by 7? It's not perfect 3 years or 2.5 years. So they had their rules and their ways of inserting the Adar year when it fits right. Okay, so within the 19-year span, they inserted the Adar, second Adar. Adar is the 12th month. Okay, second Adar 7 times in the span of 19 years. Israelites used 2 types of dating system. with the same names of the months. First, for our convenience, this is not the official name of that calendar system, but our convenience, we're going to call it the Nisan calendar or Nisan years, because this system begins with the month of Nisan, which is the first month in the Jewish calendar, and it begins on the first day of the first month, which is Nisan, all the way to the last day of Adar, which is the 12th month. And so this is the religious calendar, and this is the calendar that God gave as a new calendar in Exodus chapter 12. Next is the Tishri year calendar, or Tishri calendar. It's also 1 year. It begins, and for us who use lunar calendar, and we just had Chinese New Year, right? I always complain as a joke, I guess, not so serious, but I always complain about having 2 New Years in 1 year. And for many people, it doesn't. Especially for Westerners, it doesn't make too much sense. You have 1st of January as a New Year's Day, and then you have according to the lunar calendar, you have Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year. Similar as this, a bit similar, but Tishri year is another. You follow the same calendar, but then another system. Beginning of the 7th month, which is the month of Tishri, all the way to the 6th month next year is one cycle. Okay. So even today, many Jews or Jewish culture follows both systems. Some things they calculate or count with the Tishri calendar, some things they count with Nisan calendar. Nisan calendar is considered religious calendar. Tishri calendar is considered civil calendar, because if you're familiar with the lunar calendar, it is more applicable to farming seasons. And so some of our holidays, Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year, and autumn, what do you call it? Autumn festival?
Autumn festival.
Autumn season festival.
Mid-autumn.
That is around the time of the harvest. So Chinese New Year is around the time of the beginning sowing season, and the autumn festival is around the harvest season. And similarly, this Tishri calendar follows the farming seasons, farming time of the Israelites. And so because it is more fit to their lifestyle, it is called civil calendar. So let us review the names of the months, the 12 months in the new calendar, in the Jewish calendar. First month, Nisan, or the Canaanite name is Abib. According to the Gregorian calendar, it falls around, it fluctuates just like the lunar calendar that we are familiar with today. It fluctuates from between March and April. Okay? In Hebrew, Nisan means their flight, which reflects the exodus that occurred on this month. And the Canaanite name is Abib, which are referring to fresh, young barley years, because it's the time when they began the barley, sowing of the barley, indicating the beginning of barley harvest time. And in the Bible, we see the mention of the month Nisan in Esther 3:7 and Exodus chapter 13 verse 4. On this day, in the month of Abib, this word is used. Second month is Iyar, or Ziv. Ziv is the Canaanite name, and it falls in our calendar in the month of April or May. In Hebrew, Iyar means open, and its Canaanite name, Ziv, means brightness, the month of flowers. 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1 mentions the name Ziv, month of Ziv. And the third month is C1. It's not really showing properly the Hebrew letters, but where we would normally say Sivan, the V is the pronunciation for Vav. And this Vav originally had the W sound, especially during the biblical times. It's not Vav, it's Wow. Okay. Wow. You heard Wow consecutive or Vav consecutive. It's the same letter, but it is Wow or Vav. During the biblical times, they had the W sound. So C1 rather than Sivan. In both ways, it's okay. But nowadays, most of the times, Vav is pronounced like a V or B. Esther chapter 8, verse 9 speaks about the third month, that is the month of Sivan. The fourth month is Tammuz, falls in June or July. In Hebrew, Tammuz means sprout of life. Fifth month, going on a little bit faster, Av, which means father. It also means reed, but often is not used. Sixth month is Elul, falls in August and September. In Hebrew, Elul means nothingness or trivial. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15 mentions the month of Elul. Seventh month, Tishri or Ethanim. Canaanite name is Ethanim. Falls on September or October. In Hebrew, Tishri means first or offering. Its Canaanite name, Ethanim, means enduring and has a nickname of a month of the enduring river. If you know, is it Latin or roots from Greek or Latin, I think. Sept. When you talk about an angle with three angles, it's triangle, okay? And rectangle. What's a form with five angles? Pent. Pent means five, like Pentecost. Okay. And six angles. Hex. Right? And seven angles. Septagon, right? Sept means seven, although it is in our calendar the 9th month. It's supposed to be seven. And that has a Jewish influence here too. The 7th month is called September. So 7th month, Tishri. 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 2, the month of Ethanim, which is the 7th month. And 8th month is Marchizban or Marchizwan. Or Bull, Canaanite name, October or November. Octagon is 8 angles. Nov is 9. In Hebrew, Marchezvan means the 8th month. Its Canaanite name, Bull, means increase or produce. Has a nickname of a month of rainfall. 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 38 speaks about the temple of Solomon in the month of Bull, which is the 8th month. 9th month, Kislev, November or December. In Hebrew, Kislev means his confidence. Nehemiah chapter 1 verse 1, month of Kislev, also spelled Chislev. Also Zechariah chapter 7 verse 1 mentions Kislev. 10th month, Tebeth. Deka is 10, right? It falls on December or January. In Hebrew, Tebeth means goodness. Esther chapter 2 verse 16 mentions Tebeth. 11th month, Shabbat. Shabbat means rod, small branch, offspring. Zechariah chapter 1 verse 7. And the 12th month, Adar. falls on February or March, and that is the 12th month. And in Hebrew, Adar means glorious or brilliant. Esther chapter 3, verse 7. Should we try? Looking at me. Ready? First month, Nisan or Abib. Second month, Iyar or Ziv. Third month, Siwan or Sivan. Fourth, Tammuz. Fifth, Av. Sixth, Elul. Seventh, Tishri or Ethanim. Eighth, Bul or Marshezban. Ninth, Kislev. 10, Tebet. 11, 11, Shabbat. 12, Adar. Did we miss something? Okay, good. Dating method in the book of Ezekiel. We learned so far, especially in the History of Redemption series, books 4 and 5, they talk about the years of the kings. And most of the royal chronology, years of the kings, are calculated in the Tishri-based months, especially the southern kingdom of Judah, the kings of the southern kingdom of Judah. But not supposed to give you the answer here but Ezekiel calculates upon Nisan years. And so it is confusing. Sometimes if you calculate these years according to the Tishri, because we're used to the Tishri months, it doesn't make sense in Ezekiel. And so in the 5th book, actually, in one of the footnotes, I think footnote number 44, the author of Reverend Park actually mentions that Ezekiel uses Nisan years, Nisan-based years. We will check and prove that today, and that is a big challenge for me, for us to understand. Prophet Ezekiel was taken to Babylon on the 10th day of the first month in 597 BC, which was the second deportation. And this we found out according to the Tishri-based calendar. So 597 BC, 10th day of the first month is supposed to be Tishri. Okay? You don't have to understand everything, just accept it, okay? Just remember. So 2 Chronicles chapter 36 verse 10 tells us, at the turn of the year, and in the 5th book of the History of Redemption series, it speaks about this dating, and he interprets it as the 10th day of the first month. And also the book called the Chronology of Babylon also supports that view. So at the turn of the year, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the valuable articles of the house of the Lord, and he made his kinsman Zedekiah king over Judah and Jerusalem. So compare and refer to the Chronicles of Babylon and History of Redemption series. The 5th book speaks about this. Whether 10th day or the first day, it doesn't really matter in this calculation, as long as at the turn of the year, meaning the first month. Okay? The city of Jerusalem fell. Second clue here we have is the city of Jerusalem fell on the 9th day of the 4th month in 586 BC. Also, according to the Tishri month-based calendar. So 2 clues. First, remember, Prophet Ezekiel was taken to Babylon 597 BC on the 1st month. The city of Jerusalem fell 586 BC. Which month? On the 4th month. Okay, it's supported by 2 Kings chapter 25 verse 3 and 4. On the 9th day of the 4th month, The famine was so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land, and the city was broken into. And it continues on. Okay. Third clue, 6 months later, the 5th day of the 10th month in 585 BC, refugees from Jerusalem arrived in Babylon and came to Ezekiel. God opened Ezekiel's mouth at that time, and at the time they came to him. That's the 12th year since the exile, and that was today's main passage. Now, in the 12th year of our exile, on the 5th of the 10th month, the refugees from Jerusalem came to me, saying, "The city has been taken. Now the hand of the Lord had been upon me in the evening, before the refugees came, and he opened my mouth at the time they came to me in the morning." So my mouth was opened, and I was no longer speechless. Now, according to the 3 clues, we're going to think about 2 options. Let us look at it according to the Tishri-based month, Tishri calendar, and secondly, let us look at these years according to the Nisan calendar. So, we found out, or the Bible tells us, that Ezekiel was taken or brought to Babylon 597 BC, first month. So 597 is right here. Can you see the yellow mark? Is it not really showing? See here, 597, right? In which month? The first month. The first month. So that 597, according to Tishri, is here, and the first month is right there. Okay, 597, first month, and that continues on to this line. Okay. Now Nisan is the calendar that begins first. So the year in the 597, according to Nisan calendar, began first. And later in the 7th month, 597 begins in Tishri. Okay? And so according to 597, the first month, according to Tishri calendar, in Nisan calendar is actually which year? 596, not 597. It's the same time. It cannot be taken in 2 different times, right? It's the same time, but the calendar system is different, so calculation is different. According to the Nisan calendar, it's already 596. Okay. According to the Tishri calendar, it's still 597. Understand? Okay. So now let us think about the destruction of the temple, which was 586. According to the Tishri calendar, in the 4th month, and that was 585, 586 in the Tishri calendar, but 585 in the Nisan calendar. And later, they came and reported to Ezekiel, and that was which month? 10th month. So 10th month, this is the 4th month, and this is the 10th month. Okay? So 6 months later, 10th month came. But because, according to the Tishri calendar, when it becomes 7th month, the year changes. And that's why it's 585 according to the Tishri calendar. But according to the Nisan calendar, year begins 585 begins here and ends here. So both events took place in 585. The clue is, it says it was the 12th year. 12th year. So if you count from here, because this is when Ezekiel was taken into Babylon, up to here, how many years is that?
13 years.
597 to 587 is 11 years, inclusive calculation method. 13 years. So that makes this verse wrong. But here, if we look at it according to the Nisan calculation, it was 596 according to the Nisan calendar when Ezekiel was taken. So from here to the report, 596 to 586 is 11 years, inclusive calculation method. You understand, right? Not 10 years, 11 years. Yeah? Should we, just in case you don't understand what that means. Including 596. 596 is the first year. 595, 594, 593, 592, 591, 590, 589, 588, 587, 586. That's 11 years. Am I doing it? You know why I'm doing this? Because you're not nodding, I understand. Do you really not understand, or do you really want? Okay. So up to 585 is
12 years.
12 years. And this makes this verse make sense. And so from here we can see that Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel, is written according to, and looks at these years according to the Nisan calendar. So in Tishri years, the news of Jerusalem's fall came in the 13th year of exile. In Nisan years, the news of Jerusalem's fall came in the 12th year of exile. Hence, we can see that the book of Ezekiel does not use the Tishri years, but Nisan years, dating method. However, since all the history of redemption series wrote the years of deportation to Babylon in Tishri years, the series has also converted the chronology of the book of Ezekiel in Tishri years. So in the 11th book, all these years are converted to Tishri years. So there's unity. Okay. Important years in the book of Ezekiel. Prophet Ezekiel was active for 23 years, according to the inclusive reckoning, from 593 BC until 571 BC. The expression "in the X year of exile" occurs 13 times in the book of Ezekiel, and these dates are in Nisan years, and therefore we can convert them into Tishri years as the following. Take a picture, I'm not going to go through it. So basically, let's say, for example, Ezekiel 1:2 says, 5th year, 4th month, 5th day. Okay. In Nisan years, 592. But in Tishri years, it was 593. We saw the example here. Okay. When it was when it was 597, okay, from this month to this month, it's the same year. This falls in same year, both 597. So from 7th month up to the 12th month, if it falls from 7 to 12, it's the same year, whether Tishri or Nisan. But if the event falls between the first month and the 6th month?
Different year.
Different year. According to Tishri, it's 597, but according to Nisan,
596.
596. That's how it's calculated. And so, because this is the 4th month, first 6 months, the years are different. But for example, 10th month, when it's 10th month, the years are the same. Principles of reckoning the years. This is what I just explained. 1 year difference between Nisan years and Tishri years when the event falls in between 1st and the 6th months. For events occurring between 7th to the 12th month, the years are the same. We will repeat this. If you, it's okay. You don't have to cry. You don't have to be upset when you go home tonight if you don't get this. Okay? But get this conclusion. Okay? Remember this one. God, or the authors, God is the author of this Bible. God's perspective is the most important in reckoning the years in the Bible. It depends on what the author uses. For example, the author of Ezekiel uses Nisan perspective. Author of Kings uses Tishri perspective. And depending on that perspective, the significance of the meaning of the Bible and the events become a little bit different. And so what we need to learn to do in reading the Bible is to try to look at it from not human perspective, not my perspective, but from God's perspective. Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So with what we just did, we cannot really say, wow, how is that applicable to me? How is that so important in understanding the Bible? But when we get deeper into this, into the studies, I believe that it will make a difference. Lastly, we will do this and finish. Okay, so please bear with me. I believe this is the most important message in today's study. We're comparing here Nisan, Tishri, and Gregorian calendar. What comes first? In which calendar does the year change first? Nisan changes first, Tishri, and then the Gregorian calendar. Okay. And so you can see Nisan, this is the month of Nisan. That's the beginning of this year. Okay. The month of Tishri, beginning of the year. Okay. And the Gregorian calendar, you have January beginning here. You understand this chart, right? Yes, yes, yes. Let's hurry up and finish and go home. Yeah. So what's happening here? The question is, when was the Exodus? So far, because we don't really understand so much about the differences and it's complicated. The author of History of Redemption series has not really gone into detail in explaining this up to book 5. And book 6, book 7, book 8, not really, but here in book 11, he makes it more clear. We've been saying the Exodus was when? When was the Exodus? Give me the full date. 1446 BC.
9:15.
The date. What month? What year? What day?
9.
First month. 15th day. Right? Now, I think I made a comment to one of our Bible Academy teachers before. Do not mix those two dates. Because Nisan 15 is Jewish calendar, 1446 BC is Gregorian calendar. And I thought I was right when I said that. And then that BA teacher asked Pastor Philip or other people in higher authority and said, I'm wrong, or it's okay to do that. And now, here is the explanation. Finally, after years. See, I really did not understand why are we mixing in saying the date. Why are we mixing the Gregorian years and then adding on top of it the Nisan 15? So, what's happening here is it took place on Nisan 15. In the year, for convenience, we wrote 1446 in all three, because according to the Gregorian calendar, that is 1446. Okay? 1446 BC. According to and so we kind of use the same years for all Nisan, Tishri, and Gregorian calendar. But this Nisan 15 right here, according to the Gregorian calendar, is 23rd of April. Okay. This is 23rd of April. For both Jewish calendars, both systems, it's Nisan 15, and so it's here and it's here. The difference is, if you are only looking at the Nisan system, this Nisan calculation method, it's 1445 BC. So it depends on which calendar you are speaking about. According to Nisan calendar, it's Nisan 15 in year 1445. If you're talking Tishri calendar, which we have been talking about, 1446 Nisan 15 is the right year. According to the Gregorian calendar, 1446, 23rd of April is the year. And so we've been just generally saying Nisan 15, 1446, but we have to understand that is according to the Tishri-based calendar. But some scholars or some other books say 1445 BC was the Exodus year. That is because they must be calculating according to the Nisan calendar. But according to the Gregorian calendar, if we track back according to the modern calendar that we are using, solar calendar, it is 1446 BC. Once again, today's study is not my favorite, not your favorite, but something that we need to study at least one time and input it into our heads and know. And then hopefully this will become a good tool for us to calculate more important numbers. Okay. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for giving us this time to think about the years of all generations. And Father, although because of our lack of understanding, we may not know where this is useful, but first, we pray that you will allow us to come into your time Help us to live according to your timing. And Father, we also pray that when we read the Bible, when we try to understand the Bible, then we may be able to receive your eyes, your perspective, your Holy Spirit, so that we can see things according to how you want us to see. Help us not to force the Bible to fit my situation or to fit my argument and my views, but help us to adjust ourselves to fit your perspective so that we can really see the truth. Father, we pray that you will give us wisdom and understanding as we continue to delve into the book of Ezekiel. We pray that just as you took Ezekiel and showed him the visions of heaven, take us into your kingdom and help us to see your spiritual world. Help us to see and understand your will, and help us to really understand your plan for our lives, our church, and for this age. And Father, help us to be able to see that kingdom, the New Jerusalem, Ezekiel's temple, so that we may find true hope and help us to receive your grace. We ask all these things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ with thanksgiving.